Hey everyone, and welcome to the You vs. Mind podcast. My name is Jack Leake, and I am super excited that out of all the podcasts you had to choose from, you chose this one, and you won't regret it. Here on You vs. Mind, we dive into the heart of the mental battle and provide you with effective strategies to fight, face-to-face, the things like stress and anxiety that plague us all, as well as looking into the root of the issue and digging up testimonies and stories from people and their bout with these trials. It is time to escape the lies we tell ourselves and take back what is ours. And my job is to make sure you don't do it alone. Are you ready? Do you have that 14-page paper done yet?
No, I'm on page 11.
We're sitting here getting ready to record, and she's over there like, I'm like, what are you typing? And she's doing a 14-page paper. It's unlike you to... Because I asked you, we were Snapchatting the other day, and you said, I'm almost done with my 14-page paper. And I said, it's unlike you to be this late on something. Usually you have homework done like 3 months. Like, I swear you get assignments done before they're even posted.
No.
Like,
well, part of the reason for this is I've had two of them I've had to do. 2 15-page research papers. I've gotten the first one done already. This one took a little bit more effort because I had to get more research. So, yes. It's going to be right on the due date, but we're going to get it done.
No, it's against my religion to do 15-page essay papers. If the teacher assigns it, I just say, no, I don't believe in essay papers. No, thank you.
That's why you're in
Drop the class.
That's why you're in broadcasting, not human comm.
Yeah. Okay, so in today's episode, Isabel and I are going to be diving into the topic of laziness, and we might do a couple episodes on it. We'll see how far today's episode takes us, but there's a couple different angles to approach this. And even today for me, Isabel, as an example, I about halfway through the day realized that, and you're going to laugh at this, but I had some assignments piling up.
Some of them were late, I believe.
Okay, most of them were late,
yeah.
I will be honest, but there were some that were coming up, and we've all been there, we've all done that. We're both juniors in college, so assignments always tend to pile up on schoolgoers. It just seems to I guess not you. Like, I guess not everybody's like me.
My version of piling up is a lot different of yours.
I found myself becoming lost halfway through that sentence, but I kept going anyways, and I'll continue now. But I feel like it happens to an individual to have some homework pile up. And it can be, I don't want to say depressing, that's a heavy term, but it can really have an impact on your mood and your outlook on the rest of the day. Because whenever it hit that, I was like, man, I have quite a bit of stuff that I need to do. My mind immediately went into like a defense mode and trying to ignore what needed to be done. And I was like, okay, hold on. What is it that exactly needs to be done? And I just, on my way back to my apartment here this afternoon from my classes, I just whispered out loud each assignment that needed to be done. And in reality, it really wasn't that bad. When you break it down, because at first stuff hits you and you're like, oh my gosh, we have so much to do.
Yeah.
Let's just not do it and worry about it, rather than do it and feel accomplished. But if you just list it out, it's probably not as bad as it is, or as it feels to you. And then once you accomplish it, it feels great. Like before we did this, I finished 2 big assignments, and I feel so much better than I did 2 hours ago.
Yeah, I've had to do the same thing before, especially this past week. It was kind of overwhelming, the amount of stuff that I felt was, piling up, especially as the end of school is nearing. All the teachers are trying to, cram everything in at the last minute. But I just had to sit down and go, okay, what's the easiest thing I can get done? And I started with that because it was going to take me, the least amount of time. And then, so checking off those little boxes was a huge thing for me. So I definitely can relate to that because it's hard. And like you said, it can get overwhelming and everything just seems to come right at you. But it's like, even with this paper I'm working on, I was like, the other day I was like, okay, I'm going to get 3 pages done and I'm going to be done for the day and do something else instead of just solely working on this paper. Because granted, I'm not procrastinating. I'm not gonna have to write 14 pages the night before it's due.
Right.
But I'm also not letting the quantity of what I'm having to write overwhelm me. And breaking it down into doable chunks each day.
Yeah, that's good. I think there's 2 things that I can pull from what you just said, and the first one would be do your best to anticipate and plan. What I worked out with my counselor is have a planner, and I recommend that for people because if you're like me and you like to see the things that need to be done or have things scripted or planned out and be able to anticipate what is to come, that can help a lot. But if you do get to the point where you're, forget anticipating, I'm 20 assignments behind here.
Yeah.
If you get to that point, I agree with that. Start with the easiest, because your mind is just like, we cannot do this. And after you get over the small hill, it's like, even though you have a few steeper hills to climb, you have that momentum from the downhill of the...
Yeah, especially I want to go back to what you said with the planner, like especially if you are a visual person. I like to, I'm not necessarily a planner of like, I have to do this at this time or this at this time. I just like to see, what I have going on in the month. And then especially with school assignments, like, okay, when does this need to get done? When does this need to get done? Or even like, I love to clean. I love, cleaning my room, getting my laundry done, cleaning my bathroom, that kind of stuff. And so if I have to do that, I do that about once a week. And so if I know that I need to do that or that stuff's coming up, I'm like, okay, when does that need to get worked into my schedule? But the fact of like writing it down and being able to go, oh, here's when I'm going to do these things, but I'm going to wait till tomorrow to do this. That also helps alleviate some stress because I'm not having to go, oh, I have to get everything done today.
Yes, and I have been given that advice by multiple mentors in my life, if you will, I guess. If there's something in particular that I'm really, really stressed about that is coming later in the week, let's say it's a Sunday and I have something, on Friday, an event, an assignment, a test, whatever, that's just really causing me a lot of stress and anxiety, I will put aside not only a day, but like a time chunk. Like, okay, I don't have to worry about this event on Friday because Wednesday from 2 to 4:15, I'm going to not worry about it, but process it, think about it, write down what I need to be ready for. And I understand if it's something you need to study for, it might be a good idea to do a little bit each day. But if it's something that you're worried about, rather than like you feel like for a logical reason, set aside a time chunk to think about it. So anything else outside of that time chunk, forget about it, because you're going to think about that Wednesday from 2 to 4:15, not Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday all day. So it's nice to have a specific time to tell yourself, oh, I'm starting to worry about this, but I don't have to. That's for Wednesday afternoon. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just an example.
Yeah, no, it definitely does, because I think a lot of times compartmentalizing when everything needs to get done or when you have that specific time laid out, I think that helps prevent against some laziness. And again, kind of a definition of laziness is kind of the quality of being unwilling to work or kind of having an idleness of energy, being sluggish, lazy, moving slowly, not having that energy to, really get up and do stuff, basically kind of a lack of motivation, I would say. And I think you're exactly right. Like for me, when I'm the laziest is when I don't do those things, when I don't compartmentalize or when I don't, write that stuff down because I just get overwhelmed and I'm like, well, I'm not going to do any of it. And so I think that's something that I've noticed as well in my own laziness is just going, oh, there's just too much going on. I don't know how to handle this. And I get really sleepy, kind of sluggish, anxious in a way because I keep worrying about it, but I'm not doing anything about it. And that's when you waste time, you lose precious time. Because for me, it's not necessarily like a lot of times I want to do stuff or I want to, but I just have no motivation to get there because I'm worrying about it too much, kind of like you mentioned. And so it is a good thing to, have that time to be able to process through different things, because I think it is a huge preventative of losing kind of your grip on not necessarily having all the control, because you don't have control over everything in your life, but having that, kind of sense of like, oh, my responsibilities are here, here, and here. I need to get XYZ done for the day. And so being able to say, okay, here's where I'm going to segment that time is a huge help. So I think you hit the nail right on the head with that.
Yeah, and this stuff obviously isn't just school related. I mean, you can put in place of the assignments and the papers that we've talked about whatever you would like and whatever applies to your life. But even some things as a college student that we see and that I deal with is when I have like dirty laundry laying on the floor of my room that you're familiar with laying eyes upon as she scans my room looking at some right now. Anyways, or whenever the sink is full of dishes, I just was too lazy to do them. That's the concept we're talking about. Laziness, whatever. The bathroom's getting dirty, the floor carpet's getting dirty, whatever. Whenever some of that stuff just isn't cleaned, I feel some of that like, oh wow, I've been lazy. And realizing that is one thing, but starting it is another. Like thinking, man, I need to get that done, and overcoming the laziness to get it done are two completely different beasts.
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
it's hard to actually start cleaning your room, start cleaning the bathroom, start cleaning the dishes. But once you do start, naturally your body just has that feeling of, all right, we're on to something. We know what the positive effects are going to be when we're finished, and it's going to be great. So I usually start with like, just if it's the laundry example, pick up one sock, whatever, and put it away. Or if it's the dishes, clean one cup and put it away. And like you said earlier, just doing the small things first.
I think that that's so true because, like, even the other day when I was kind of overwhelmed with some stuff, like, it had been a while since I had cleaned everything, and I was just feeling like, ugh, I don't really know what to do or what to get started with. But I realized, like, mentally, I looked and I said, okay, I'm not going to, quote unquote, let the laziness win. And so I just started with one thing, and within an hour, I had everything cleaned or ready to work on homework and that kind of thing. And it was that mentality of like, in the moment, I didn't want to do it. Like inside, I was just like, oh, I just want to lay here on the couch, watch TV. I don't really want to get up and do it. Like I'm tired, I'm exhausted. I kind of really had that rut of laziness, and I was just like, I can't do this. But mentally, I was like, no, you just got to go. And once I got the first task done, it was like this like you said, this motivation.
You feel so good.
Yeah, well, it
changes your whole day.
Yeah, there's actually a science behind it of your body needs 4 chemical processes to take place in the brain to increase happiness, and serotonin is one of those. And one of the biggest boosters of serotonin, one, getting your gut healthy. But the second one is achieving goals. And so to be able to, check stuff off the box increases that dramatically. And so the more you do stuff like that, like you're saying, it just boosts your mood. And that was the biggest thing. Like I kind of got over that hump of, feeling kind of sluggish and really not knowing what to do with my mood. And so that was a big thing that I noticed of just doing those little things. So that's the biggest thing I would recommend if you're like, I don't really even know where to start. I'm just kind of stuck in this rut of, not being motivated, whatever the form of laziness looks like, of just kind of almost like your mind being the bigger person and taking control over your body and being like, look, get up, go do this. And, afterwards you are going to feel better because you're going to be like, okay, I got over this. I accomplished something. Again, not letting your almost fleshly desire to, sit and do nothing win.
Yeah, that's very good. And some of my worst days, if you will, have been recovered or flipped around to a positive day because I got something done. Just do something. And I would even go as far to say that even if you don't get something how do I say this? Productive. There you go.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Even if you don't get something productive done, just go do something. Go jog around the block. I like to go to the rec center and play basketball whenever I'm feeling kind of down. And then once I leave the rec center after playing basketball, I feel like I can go get something progressive or productive done. So even if it's not something productive you're doing, go do an activity that's unproductive. And then you might be in a better state to do those productive things. Just getting your body and your brain activated and out of that sloth state that you might talk about in a bit. That'll make sense later whenever you read that paper, the sloth thing, but can help a lot.
Yeah, no, I definitely, and while you say unproductive, like, yeah, while basketball
it
might,
is productive.
Yeah, I mean, it's more of like a fun thing. So like, if you like to go walk your dog, go walk your dog. If you have kids, go play with them, go do something productive with them, and just those little things that kind of get that on switch turned off or turned on in your brain to go, okay, let's do the next thing. I mean, that goes a long way. And I don't even think I realized how such a long way it went. Cause I've definitely had to do stuff like that before. Like the other day you told me to go outside and, sit in the sun. And that was something that I didn't realize I needed until I went out and I was like, oh, nature, like this is cool. I was only out there for like 5 minutes.
Right.
But when I came back in, I was like, okay, I feel like I can do the rest of my homework, face the rest of the day, do what I need to get done.
Yeah. What's best for the body is always natural. What God put in place is what's best for the body.
Yeah.
And we walk around and are in concrete jungles all day long.
Yeah.
How often do we actually engage with what is natural? Very, very little. So just to my counselor and I had this discussion the other day. That's why I told you to do it. Take your shoes off and stand in the grass. That can activate and decrease laziness. To ground yourself in what is natural.
I think that technique's actually called grounding.
Yes, it's a ground. There's a lot of different grounding techniques, and we've covered a couple, but that's a big one too. I hope you're enjoying this episode of You versus Mind. If you have questions or comments of any sort, please feel free to email me at jleake2015@gmail.com. That's JLEAKE2015@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. I do feel like, though, because on this podcast we talk a lot about, and in a lot of descriptions, anxiety of different episodes, I do feel like anxiety is tied into laziness in ways, because whenever you're anxious and you're stressed, you're constantly running.
Yeah.
Not physically, obviously, needless to say, but mentally you're just running, and you wear yourself down.
Well, yeah, that's exhausting.
And there's just a quick side note, getting sleep's huge too. I mean, we're going to do a whole episode on sleep, but that is absolutely vital, bold, italicized, and underlined. Very vital in overcoming some laziness. So start with sleep. But anxiety is tied in a little bit to laziness, because the more stressed you are, the more tired you'll be. I do think that it's a blessing in disguise, because sometimes when you're anxious, it can wake you up to some laziness, because it manifests from that. Dakota and I, a buddy of ours, Dakota is his name, we were talking about just anxiety the other day. He listened to a couple episodes, and he said, I feel like the fact that we have this anxiety actually pushes us to become the best we can be in a way. When you learn to handle it and you find out it's because you care so much and you want to be great. So I feel like I saved that in the Snapchat, because I thought it was good.
Yeah, that is good.
That's a good way to look at it, and I don't want to get away from our laziness topic, but it does tie in, because anxiety can be the root of laziness, therefore can wake you up to it and be like, whoa, I need to approach my anxiety. Then your laziness is being addressed and you don't realize it, and then you become like, wow, I'm getting stuff done, let's go, and then anxiety's beaten too, in ways.
I think that's really good, because anxiety can go to the point of depression, and then with depression comes a lot of the feeling of hopelessness and various things that cause a lot of long-term laziness. And so that in itself can be, that's a lot of times where people suffer for that. But before reaching kind of the depressive state, anxiety in a way is almost, I think what you said about, wanting to, be perfect or wanting to do things well, a lot of times is a cause of anxiety. And so I think that also is something where, that also can wear oneself out of wanting. That was definitely with my anxiety of constantly needing to be perfect, needed to be enough. And so to be able to go, oh, let's slow down a little bit and, realize that it's okay to, be productive, but not turn that into worry. And so there is that fine line of going, okay, where am I productive enough and okay enough with my performance that I'm not worrying, but I'm not falling into this trap of being procrastinated, unproductive and lazy, because there is that fine line. So I think he was very, very wise in that statement.
Yeah. And whenever I was researching this a little bit this week, goal setting kept coming up all the time. You punch in how to beat laziness. It sounds silly, but goal setting kept coming up all the time. Every time it said set goals, under it, at least on the couple articles I saw, said, but don't set unattainable goals.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what you just said.
Yeah, with every goal, I think the acronym is SMART, and it stands for, let me see if I can pull up my notes here, because I wrote this down. Yeah, so goals should be SMART, which is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. So basically that means make your goals specific enough so that you know exactly what you need to complete in reaching that goal. Make the goal measurable. So define what evidence is going to prove that you're making progress, that you're reaching that goal, that kind of thing. The A stands for attainable. So make sure that you're reasonably accomplishing your goal within a certain time frame. So, don't be out here going, oh, I want to, this is not necessarily like, I want to run a mile like in a day, but you haven't prepared to run a mile. Like, so for some people who don't run or jog on a regular basis, that might be really difficult to do. So, change that goal to make it more attainable. R stands for relevant. So your goals should align with your values and long-term objectives. So basically what you will want to accomplish long-term also needs to match. Again, sometimes more short-term goals don't necessarily fall under this, but you still want to make it relevant to what you need to get done.
And what word is this an acronym for?
Smart.
I was turning the audio levels.
Smart.
Smart.
Oh, no, you're
okay.
good. Yeah.
Go ahead.
And then the T stands for time-based. So set a realistic amount of time and end date. Like, when does this need to get done? Even if it's not, like, I know a lot of times schoolwork or, homework have deadlines. Do that with other things. Like, say, if you've got to clean by a certain day or you need to do something by a certain day, say this time, I know a lot of papers are like due at 11:59 p.m. And some students are up working at that time, but like say, by 3:00 on Friday, I want this, and this done, and make sure that fits under your SMART goals. Because then that way you're not trying to accomplish something that's too far out of reach for you, thus potentially reciprocating more laziness because you didn't reach that goal or you kind of feel down on yourself. Make goals that you can reach. And even if they're a little bit difficult, like that's okay, but still try to fit it under these SMART guidelines so that way you're able to, feel good about accomplishing it. Again, releasing that serotonin, checking stuff off the box. I mean, that stuff like that is huge. So again, that is the acronyms is SMART, which is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. And if you can follow those 5 things, that's going to be a huge step in conquering that laziness.
I think it's also important too. That was super good. Thanks for sharing that. That was really good. I think it's also important to be careful and not let laziness lie to us, because all of what we're saying is true. But the laziness inside of us will be like, oh, well, Jack and Isabel on You Versus Mind said to keep your goals attainable and start with the smallest thing. You don't have to do everything at once. So today we should just do one small assignment, and that's what Jack and Isabel said. So we'll just do one small assignment today, or we'll just clean one cup today, or put away one sock, and then we'll do the rest later. That's laziness lying. That is a good start, but that's not all you should do.
Yeah. Again, if you are really like, if you're deeply struggling with that, or kind of have like, if you really are struggling with like depression or something like that, like seek help. Don't try to solve this on your own, because that's a problem that you need outside help and support with. But also at the same time, like you said exactly, don't let the laziness lie to you. Like be productive. Challenge yourself a little bit, especially if that's something you really struggle with. Be like, okay, I can do this. Well, what can I do better? Or what can I achieve more of? Because that's going to lead to long-term success. Because like, that's kind of where I'm rolling right now. Like I've been able to, kind of, like I said, get back on top of, that productivity wave, because that is going to come in waves. You're not going to be productive all the time,
right.
But you should fight. You will have spurts of laziness. So don't get defeated when those situations happen. Just know, like, listening to this or looking up other resources, like know how to fight it when it comes on. Because I kind of knew in the back of my head, I was going, oh, why am I feeling like this? And then I was like, oh, I have a bout of laziness. How do I fix this? And so I was able to kind of have a 3-day turnaround of getting back on top of that. So yeah, definitely kind of know in the back of your head what your symptoms of laziness are. And then, maybe it is only doing one cup or one, picking up a few things, but have that motivate you to do more.
Right. Reward yourself too, because I said in episode 1, self-care is too far underrated, because we're pressured to do all these things, and in an environment in America that is constantly asking things of us. But we're humans on planet Earth. We're just people. And we can't forget that we're humans. Sometimes I feel like we forget that. We think we're robots and can accomplish everything, because sometimes people try to do too much. Like, my parents are workaholics, and they're like, oh, man, I have all this stuff to do, or they don't always complain, but that's got to be what they're thinking. And it's like, man, just relax. Just take an evening and watch an Andy Griffith, eat your favorite food, whatever, or reward yourself along the way. If I have 5 assignments to do, sometimes I'll say, I'm going to do 2, and then watch my favorite show and have some cereal, and then do the next 2, or something like that. So just remember that you're a human, and that you need to take care of yourself, and along the way, reward yourself, and don't overdo it, because we can fall into that too. It's a complicated
thing. Well, it's exactly like I said. You don't want to work too much, because that is the whole like mindset of like, yeah, you should work hard, pursue your dreams. I mean, that's essentially the American dream, but at the same time, like, you don't want to run yourself into the ground, because in the long run, that's not good for your physical health. That's not good for your mental health. And so you definitely, I mean, take care of yourself, but also don't get into that rut of laziness, because on the flip side of that, that's not good for your mental health either. So you want to be proactive on both sides.
So as we obviously like to do, if you're a usual here on You versus Mind, is take a look at the spiritual side, and not to treat the spiritual side as like we talk about daily life and earthly stuff, and then we tend to like maybe do another portion of the episode on spiritual. I kind of think like it's all one. I don't just want to separate like, oh, this is spiritual, this is earthly. While that is true, I still think you have to tie them in together.
Yeah, well, we want to talk about them separately so that you understand where we're going with both points, but at the same time, like, being able to utilize them both in your daily life together is how it should be done. Yes. So that's kind of why we structure it that way.
So Colossians chapter 3, verse 23 through 24 talks about like essentially combating laziness. Whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. We talked about rewards earlier. You are serving the Lord Christ. And that's a tough mentality to keep, because I also think that sometimes people don't, well, I know, some people don't like their jobs. So the second their eyes open in the morning, it's just dread. Yeah. 100% just dread. And trust me, I remember when I've mowed for a lawn service the past 3 years, and I would have to wake up before 5 o'clock some days to go weed eat a cemetery. Fun. And the audience goes, oh, that'd be terrible. Yeah, it's not as bad as you think, but it's not fun. And so having your eyes crack open at 4:58, hearing the iPhone alarm go, no, that's not a good feeling. That is not a good feeling. But I read that scripture a couple mornings right before weed eating the cemetery. I'm not working for these bosses. I'm not working for me. I'm working for the Lord. Yeah. And in some way, somebody will be impacted. And the Lord, or it said the inheritance of the Lord is your reward. So anyways, I know you had a couple spiritual things to share on that, but that's just a good mentality to try to keep.
Yeah, no, that's definitely good, because like I guess I worked at, so far I've only had like 2 jobs. One, I worked at a pharmacy for 4 years throughout high school. And there were some tough customers that would come in there, and I had to rely on that verse as well, because it was like, okay, even though they're going to be mean to me, or I had a few customers cuss me out on the phone a few times, but I just had to keep going. I have to show Jesus' love to them no matter what. And currently I work at a coffee shop in our hometown, and I absolutely love it. It is a job I love, and I don't ever wake up going, oh, here we go again. And so I'm very lucky right now, but you're exactly right. There's a lot of people that out there that are struggling with their jobs. And so if you're listening and you're one of those people, like, just tell yourself, like, even though, like, whether it's your coworkers or, customers that you're interacting with, like, think of it rather than, having to, I mean, yeah, that's hard to endure that. And I'm sorry you're going through that. But at the same time, like, think about it of like, okay, how can I show Christ to these people? How can I, make the workplace better? Because even if you're just a little bit of light, people are going to see that and gravitate towards that. And so you're exactly right. Like, it's definitely not easy. But it's really cool when you kind of flip that mindset and go, okay, how can I be Jesus today? And so then the other thing I kind of done in my research is my first year of college I spent at Cedarville University. For those that don't know, is a small private Christian school out in Ohio. And one of my classes was an intro to the Bible and the gospel. So we kind of did a review over, the whole Bible, and then specifically in the gospels. And one of my textbooks was actually a study over the 7 deadly sins, and one of those sins being laziness or sloth. And the definition that the book gave I thought was really good. And it says, sloth is a sluggishness of spirit, feeling, mind, and eventually body that grows from a state of dejection over the worthwhileness of spiritual things. And so I thought that was really powerful, because it explained the sin in a way that I could never put into words, as far as like, what laziness is from a spiritual perspective. And well, I had some ups and downs with my relationship in Christ. I realized that the times I was at my lowest spiritually was also the times my motivation was low and the times that I didn't want to work.
Right.
And so that was something that whenever
Yeah.
I didn't have that close identity, when I wasn't reading my Bible daily, or I wasn't, having those good fellowship times with other believers, like that's when my passion for life kind of drained a little bit. And then there was another quote that the book stated. Let me see if I can find it here. Oh, yeah. And I thought this was also put beautifully as why I felt that way, is because no one but God is self-sufficient. Everything in creation has hunger, whether for food, for meaning, for love. To hunger and thirst for whatever fulfills is right and appropriate by man. And so basically what this quote is saying is like, everything in creation has a hunger for something. That hunger is for Jesus. That hunger is to be filled with the Spirit of God. And so if you don't have that filling you up, then everything else you search for, whether that's food or meaning or love, anything like that, anything that the earth is going to provide is eventually going to turn around and leave you empty again. And so your motivation is going to take extreme ups and downs. And that's where I've kind of noticed in my personal walk, like I've found this quote to be so true, because if God's not filling me up, one, I can't be poured out to other people and be Jesus in my workplace, in school, to my friends, family, etc. But it's also where I have no motivation to do my daily tasks. I have no motivation to do my work and things like that. And so I found, okay, so to hunger and thirst for what is man's going to leave me empty. Well, then what does it look like to hunger for righteousness? And I kind of found this like almost pursuit of the Lord, like kind of setting me on fire in a way of like, if he's going to fill me up, then I want as much as him as possible. The book also put this very beautifully, as it said, for seeking becomes finding, and finding becomes joy, and joy overcomes sloth or laziness. And so through the fulfillment of Christ, we receive joy. So then in the outflow of our hearts, we'll be able to overcome this kind of lazy attitude. And so that's something that I've kind of looked at of like, okay, I need to be hungry for God in the same way I wake up for breakfast. I love food. You know that if I don't have food.
She loves food, I can confirm.
If I don't have
it is quite remarkable to watch.
If I don't have something to eat, or when I'm hungry, I need to eat in the next 10 minutes, or I'm very I'm not good to be around.
I get a sneer.
Yeah.
I get a scary glance.
And so for the same way that because for my example, it's food, but anything else you enjoy in life, the same way that I desire to eat and be fulfilled that way, the same way I need to be fulfilled with Christ, because that's the only way that I'm going to truly overcome laziness.
1 Timothy 5:8 says, anyone who does not provide for their relatives, and especially for their own household, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. That's very powerful.
Yes.
From 1 Timothy 5:8. So think of it as, you're providing. You're providing for the Lord, for your family. You're doing what you were put on the earth to do. And not to say, like, if you're doing a job you hate, that's not any way to live your life. I'm not saying that. But dread and laziness is going to be something that humans deal with, even if it's a job that they like. Like, you love your job.
Yeah.
You've told me before, like, I absolutely love my job. But there are days where it's like, I just don't want to go to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
And not calling you out, like, who hasn't done that? But I'm just saying, like, even if you love your job, it's just human that's going to come around at some point, and that's the enemy trying to pull you away from being a light, and if we aren't, who will be? So I thought this was a really good talk, and we'll see if we can. I feel like we covered a lot. We might just keep it one episode on laziness, but there's so much to cover. We covered a couple different, like, organizational strategies, how to manifest your own motivation, how to get things done, and then the spiritual side we just touched on. So I really enjoyed talking about laziness. I don't know about you, Isabel, but that was a good conversation.
Yeah, it was good. I hope it definitely motivates me. I'm like, oh, I think I can finish this paper tonight. But I hope it motivates you guys to, kind of figure out how to combine, like we mentioned, the conventional tactics of beating laziness with, seeking that spiritual fulfillment from God, and, getting motivated and getting stuff done.
Yeah, because you versus mind isn't just anxiety, which is what we preach all the time on here, but Isabel and I, obviously, Isabel's kind of the new face of You versus Mind along with me. She's the new co-host. In case you missed it in the last episode, go check that one out. It's more than just, we've kind of tried to explore the ideas of, okay, what can we talk about? How can we impact people's lives? And it's more than anxiety. There's laziness, and then I'm not going to say any more because I want it to be a surprise. But we have a lot of cool things that involves the battle with the mind upcoming. So thank you guys for listening. I hope you took some tips that are helpful and you can apply to your daily life. Thank you again for listening. Have a good rest of your day. And as always, God bless. Thank you for joining me for this edition of You versus Mind. My hope is that you are now more prepared to take on your mind when it attacks than you were at the beginning of the podcast. Podcasts on this show are weekly, so be sure and tune in next week for additional weapons to add to your mental arsenal. You can find You vs. Mind on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. I would love to talk to you and answer any questions you may have, or just have a conversation. Again, you can reach out to me at jleake2015@gmail.com. That's JLEAKE2015@gmail.com. Thank you again for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and God bless.